Manever I say ma PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV there, I see them yopo.
Asebu Kwamankese is the MP there, and also the Minister of State in charge of Government Communication, and also the spokesperson for His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. So, Doc, what are your reflections 2024, a year later?
Well, let me say that I'd like to start by, when your flyer came out, I got some few calls last night and this morning, apparently from institutional suppliers to the free SHS program, those who supply rice, oil, mackerel, and all that across the country. And their claim is that they've done a lot of supplies to the free SHS program, and it appears government is not paying. Now, they themselves told me that their engagements with the education minister went very well, but finance is not responding. So I asked them two questions. Why are you calling me? Because some of the people who called me, when I told them last year, a year ago, that they support us, they said, Doctor, you guys, you are going. But they jokingly said that they know Felix is on the show, so he can talk to the government. So they should. Apparently, it's also because in a few weeks, they need to get money to get stock for Christmas. They also supply the public. So, presidential spokesperson, this strategy by Atu of squeezing the neck of people who do work with government, he should loosen the rope because it's getting to Christmas. More. So this is a public interest, and apparently what they are saying is that going forward, if they don't get my response, it will affect their ability to supply to the schools. Okay. Now, 1 year on, the Bible tells us that there is a time and season for everything. There are seasons. There are times of triumph. And there are times when you become the vanquished. There are times when you cry at a funeral. And there are times when you dance until your clothes fall off. That is how the world operates. There are times when a political party will lose an election. And there are occasions when they will be triumphant. The prayer is that the one who is the victor would remind himself or herself that that state is not eternal. And the one who has also become the vanquished will be encouraged, like David did, that tomorrow can be brighter. When I hear some of the NDC guys talk, I look at them quiet and I go like, but you guys, you don't even have to go and read during the days of Napoleon. Don't go far. Read only 8-10 years back. You've been at your lowest points before. So 1 year on, I'm surprised and I'm not surprised. Look, President Kufuor came into office at a time when the power sector, power availability, energy was a big problem under John Mahama. We said we were going to make sure that the lights stay on. We came at a time when the government was under so much pressure that they were trying to close fiscal gaps. That led them to putting taxes on condoms and machetes. History is good, though. Even this one is not long history. This one is Enra history. It came to a time 17.5 was put on financial transactions. People say, hey, what kind of government is this? You got to go. And they went. They went in a grand style. And some of our people were consumed by the excitement. Oh, that's the end of NDC. But the most important is that when we came, we did things that reminds me of what is happening now. We removed the 17.5 on machetes and financial transactions. We abolished the taxes on special import levy. We abolished. Growth had shrunk from about 12% or so, somewhere from about 14% when oil came into commercial production in 2012. It had come down all the way to 3.5. If you look at the graph, growth was like this. Inflation was going up. Debts was going up. Similar to the things they tell us. Akufo-Addo's first term saw to an increase again in the growth pattern, GDP. Which means that you are creating opportunities, you are building wealth, you are able to afford social programs. Beyond that, inflation also started to trend downwards. We had some single-digit inflation the first time. For the first time in many years, we started to experience primary surplus, which is a comparison of what you are raising revenue minus your expenditure when we put aside debt servicing. For the first time in a long time. And that normally gives you an idea of prudence because it shows that you are not borrowing to fund your basic things. And the Akufo-Addo first time, in this Ghana, a program like Free SHS, huge, massive program in terms of fiscal impact, in terms of the money you need. There were people in our own party who said, don't try it. It's too much of a pressure on the fiscal space. Take your time. Akufo-Addo said, no, we are moving. We can do it. We realized that even the spaces were not enough for Ghanaians. We had to think outside the box. He said, okay, run a double track. Better for all Ghanaian kids to have access to the teacher than for some to go to the teacher and others to stay at home. I remember, I'll not mention, we had a fine man in this country who said, oh, if I have 3 billion, I'm not going to spend on a recurrent expenditure. I'll put into capital expenditure. I'll build infrastructure. But the Free SHS won. And so President Akufo-Addo stuck to his word and we implemented. All in the first term of Akufo-Addo. And then as we enter the second term, we are human beings. There were some actions which I say that were outside our control. There were some actions to mistakes which were within our control. But Moro, are you surprised? When you have a collection of human beings running a government, you have some of these things. So in the second term, things were going well until we had a pandemic. And when you say, they said, don't mention it. But they say so because it serves their purpose. Moro. If you have a pandemic, that makes all of a sudden Gasem sell cement at 2 times the price. In fact, 100% increase. Why? Because freight had gone up. Because all shipping lines closed. And the resumption, there was pressure on the few shipping lines that were operating. The NDC will conveniently tell you, don't mention that. But it is a fact. We lived with it in this country. He knows economics. He knows about imported inflation. The whole world went to sleep. When China started producing, once demand was more than the supply, prices of goods went up before they even entered this country. They call it imported inflation. But Felix will tell you, don't mention it. Because if Felix listens to that, it means he might stay longer in opposition. The price of crude, I wrote it. Crude price in 2017 was $60 per barrel. In 2018, 65. Moro, it moved as high as 86 in 2021. When crude goes up, it affects electricity, it affects transportation, it affects standard of living. Felix will tell you, Boye, just keep quiet, let's move on. Because he knows that these are the things that might make someone go like, wait a minute. It appears these guys were hit by stuff. But it's not surprising. This is the life of the politician globally. It's not an isolated case. In the US, prices of gas, which is fuel, they told Biden, you are a joke because prices are gone up. When Biden was telling them, look, it is a global phenomenon. It's because now crude price has gone up. They said, you got to go. They pushed him out and brought big man, Trump. Before I forget, they've had about 200 elections that look partisan or have some semblance of partisan. Since Trump came, the Democrats have won about 95%. You know why? Those who voted for Trump, thinking that the affordability issues, the standard, the high, what's the word? The cost of living was as a result of Biden. They realized that Trump has even worsened it. So the point I'm making is that there were things that worked against us. And I'll be humble enough to say there were things that also we ourselves, by omission or commission, engineered. When President Akufo-Addo said we're going to build a national cathedral, it was a time when we were not in economic difficulties. But by the time the steps progressed and we were actually on the ground, we were in serious debts because we had spent more during COVID time and our productivity was less. But it's like having committed yourself to a course. How to withdraw look awkward. So we were in it. And Felix them smartly played the politics, which is fair. That look at how tight things are. But these guys want to build a cathedral. In life, there are things that sometimes you are not able to predict. If we knew that COVID will make life so difficult that prices of fuel will go up, it will be difficult to get our money, our workers will be at home, we can't have the revenues we want, we would say that this cathedral should wait for some other time. But you are in it. You've dug the ground. and now you are stuck. You don't have money. So these were things that were negated. Apart from some of the things that happened, look, human beings by our nature, we remember more of the bad than the good. Millions of parents had their children passing through free SHS. But when you say it, they go like, Because the one which makes life difficult will normally overshadow the good. So you have people looking at the prices of, let's say, fuel, looking at the cost of items, inflation and all that. So there were things that worked against us. And like I said, there were some that we also... look, President John Dramani Mahama was in Harvard few moments after he became president. And he gave a speech because the audience were very... like they knew what's up. So his speech was apt and on point. That look, Africa had serious challenges because of our experience with the COVID, including the countries coming from. But such a thing he will not say to a local audience because he's a politician. Maybe I might find myself doing a similar thing. I mean, if I were in his shoes. But just to let us know then and now. Well, beyond the events in our time, they also looked at, the NDC looked at some of the things that were happening in the country, some of the biggest challenges like youth unemployment, and coined messages which fit the bill, like the 24-hour economy. And sometimes when you listen to the explanation, you couldn't really get it. But I remember one lady who gave us an equation that solved the problem. That is an equation. It is 133. It's one job, 3 people doing the shift instead of now, then the one, and then 3 people, 3 shifts. Almost a year down the line, you can see that really it was a nice message that got a lot of people on. But in terms of reality and implementation and existence, it's something that it will be difficult to really identify as working now. They will normally tell you, go to passport office. But those are, even in our time, you had state institutions that had semblance of 24 hours. I don't think during our time, when it is 8 o'clock, all the lights at the port go off. Just that, I mean, I know an agent who told me that a lot of things were being done online, whether it's 1 a.m., 2 a.m. and all that. So the messaging, beyond 133, you had another message, the Women's Bank. In terms of getting people upon, powerful. Imagine you meet women and go like, look, we are going to have a bank for only women. In fact, in terms of imagery, when you imagine, it's like you see a bank where even men don't enter. Tomorrow, what would you have gone to do in that bank? But in terms of imagination, could you have perceived men going in? It was a woman. And what was the message? This is where women will be given money, soft loans, to run their business. Tomorrow, with informal sector is about 80% in Ghana. And this 80%, women make about 70-80% of it. So this was a fantastic message. 1 year down the line, if you look at how much was put in and all that, you can see that, I mean, the promise is not like, and then the West, like I call it the...
But I'm sure that you
have more time.
You heard the finance minister mention that an amount of 400 million cedis had been committed.
Oh, I know. You see, yes. There are two things. First of all, your mandate is normally 4 years. I always say that if you're a politician and you have serious fidelity to your promises, you must be seen to be in a hurry.
Right.
You see, this budget is committing about 2.5 billion Ghana cedis towards the purchase of about 5 aircrafts. 2.5 billion. And then for women, your first budget, how much did you put in?
Was 50.
Well, 50.
Operational.
Second. So you can see that the agency of the politician when he wants power sometimes changes. Otherwise, look, compare the two. The amount. If you can spend this on machines, I call it machines. Me, I like cars. And I call it a wild car. If I see a good car, I call it a machine. And planes are normally good machines. If you are going to put that much in a machine, and you are a person who in opposition said machines should not take the chunk of our money, it's a big surprise. And then let me say that in terms of lessons for the transition, I wrote a few things. Moro, there was one point I made in Asempa. Nobody listened to me. I'll make it here. I've gone for 3 elections at the parliamentary level. I said it many months before last election that there's a particular law. If Ghana doesn't pass it, I'm throwing it to you. people will die in the next election.
Okay.
You see, we are funny people. Forgive me, but sometimes it appears we don't. I don't know whether it's my science background. We don't analyze the causes of a problem and detailing the solution. Why is it that during elections, all polling stations normally is quiet, and then when it gets to the collation center, people are willing to die and there's bloodshed? Why?
That's an interesting question.
The answer is very simple. Moro, for the presidential election, when there is a dispute, assuming you are robbed as a candidate, you know that if you get all your pink sheets and you go to our Supreme Court, maximum, the law says, I think within 6 months,
yes,
the court must be able to come out with what the verdict. What it means that, forgive me for using the word, any rogue president, someone who steals his way by either threatening people or using his power, you know the rogue has only 6 months and the court will do what? Get him out. But for parliamentary, if you are able to use any means to get yourself declared, even when you know that your pink sheets doesn't make you the MP and you are not the one who won, you know that it might take 4 years before the case is determined. So you know what happens? No, I've said this over. So what happens is that at our collation centers, people go there knowing that if you don't do anything to stop an injustice, including use of harm, and they declare for your opponent, that is your end. So people go there with the thinking that forget the courts, it might take too long. What is stopping us? Felix, you are here, with all due respect. I know you've sent a lot of bills to Parliament. ASAP, Ghana as a country, have, whether it's a CI or whatever, that says that parliamentary disputes, just like the presidential, should be settled in 90 days. Moro, you know what will happen? Yeah. If I am a candidate at the parliamentary level, if we have such a law, do you know what I'll do?
Right.
When I get all my pink sheets, I'll not step at the collation center. Moro, I'll go to sleep. You know why? If you have, again, let me use the word, a rogue returning officer who goes to conspire with my opponent, and they declare him as a member of parliament, I smile home, get my pink sheets, and I'm at the High Court the next Monday. And Moro, I know that is rogue kingdom will last just 90 days. What kind of human beings are we? Why is it that we live in a country where we see ourselves shedding blood and yet we sit back? That is the reason why some elements were moving from constituency to constituency, trying to put a gun or knife to the head of returning officers. This is the cause. So, Moro, the lesson from the transition is that if we don't pass this law ASAP in this country, every parliamentary election at the collation center is a war zone. Yeah. We have to learn and recover from it quickly. Well, let me say that the first 1 year of this government has had some, I like innovation. You learn in economics that when you have the same resources and you want to achieve a greater outcome, what will make you achieve greater outcomes is innovation, technology, and being more efficient. So, as a country that wants to help a lot of people, I like it when we become innovative. And that's why one of the things I give to this government is the formation of the Gold Board. And by extension, how Sami Jemfi, based on the figures, has run the place. It's one of the positives I see. Innovation, because we didn't have a gold board as a country. We had a cocoa board. And you know what? When I say it doesn't mean that everything about the gold board structure is perfect. But at least the gold board makes sure that your current account balance, in terms of your forex you have to use to import things, versus the one that you have to purchase, you have a positive, or is in a good condition. It means that you don't have a situation where, let's say, you need $1 billion to import oil and food and all that. Yet what you have at Bank of Ghana is half a $500 million. Yeah. It means you are short by $500 million. That will put strain on your currency. With gold board, almost every gold that comes out of here, we know that the dollar will be reflected here. So it's an innovation that I give this government. One other, arrangement, which I'm happy about, is the uncapping of the debt fund in the National Health Insurance. It makes a lot of resources go to these places. But you know, there's a small catch. I remember Honorable Abina when we were in office. There was a time when a lot of people argued that,
You mean Abna
Osei, yes.
The former deputy
yes,
minister?
my big sister.
Okay.
There were arguments, some debate when I was in parliament. They said, but why are you capping? Let the money go. And she showed us some figures that show that if government lets all the money go to the statutory funds and we service interest and we pay salaries, virtually there's nothing to even buy fuel for cars to move. So the capping was to get some coins, like I put it, from some of these statutories so that the state can function. I mean, because this government has let all go, they are also now having a little issue sometimes with, and that's why these rights people are calling me that talk to Felix. Now, when they pay all, it helps with running of the educational institutions, those doing get fund projects. Now, when you go to local government, they have enough funds. NHI is fantastic. But when you come to the center, you realize that, let's say, you are a ministry that must go and observe how farmers are working at Greek. Your goods and services is not coming. You know, so these are some of the, so I give it to them when it comes to the uncapping and the gold board. But there are other things that we've experienced which going forward we have to learn from. Disruption in contracts. Politicians always give the excuse that we have to do an audit. The last time, it's just last week or so that Agboja, my senior brother, said they finished doing audit on road contracts. What it means that if you are doing a road, it's almost 1 year, you are now going to be paid. Guess what? In Sawam, Pokwasi, it took the agitation of those there and the halt of the work and the deterioration to force more or less the hand of this government to pay the contractor to work. So those things have cost us economically because all this while, things that could have moved on slowed. And the part which I want to mention is very serious. In the 2026 budget, which was read by my senior brother, Honorable Tufosi, he said we're going to generate close to 480,000 jobs from big push into roads. The budget was to create 800,000. Almost 500,000 was from road works. And the rest, the 300,000 left, 250,000 is from the oil palm, which is also an innovation. It's one of my high points of the 2026 budget. This oil palm stuff. It's a whole sector that has a lot of potential. So it's also one of my excitements. But roads and oil palm alone were virtually to make 95% of the jobs we want to create. What does it tell you? If roads, you are admitting, creates a chunk of the jobs, or it's going to bring some of the jobs, it means that the roads you stopped or halted, many people would have lost their jobs over the past, 1 year. And if I don't know anything, I know that those workers working on Agenda 11 projects and La Genera, averagely about 30,000 construction work, all of them have been at home for the past 1 year. And that is a serious concern. As a country, we must learn how to be efficient on our audits. Audits are important, but an audit should not take 12 months, Moro. Okay. Well, why should an audit take 12 months? Do an audit, but we should be, how do you call it? We should be, this is where haste matters, okay. Not in declaring a seat vacant. We'll get there. Okay. Moro, and then let me say that my brother Felix conveniently tells us the monies they've put in our pockets. Mm-hmm. So as I speak, Felix has put how do you call it, e-levy money back into my pocket. More, is that not so? Right. All right. Just a few days ago, President John Dramani Mahama put another money in my pocket, the COVID-19 levy. Is that not so? Mm. But how come they don't tell us those monies they are taking away from our pocket? Mm-hmm. Felix. The D-levy, which has taken 5.7 billion from the pocket of Ghanaians. That's the estimation projection for 1 year. Is it that they forget, or is the communication style? Oh, apart from the D-levy, electricity prices have gone up. The prices that we were paying under the NPP administration, there's been increases about 2-3 times. In fact, when you do the estimates, you are looking at about 10 to 15 billion from electricity and water extra. These are monies that Felix and this administration, and you know the funny part, I should have brought you, I think paragraph 362 or so of their first budget said that they would ensure that the ESLA and the others brings in enough funds for the energy levy without any increase in taxes or levies. As we speak, they've taken that money from our pocket. Are you aware that the reorganization of the VAT, decoupling NHI and stuff, led to some form of increases in the taxes, raw VAT that businesses will pay? So, no, this will be my final words. Okay. it is too early in the day to say that this government has, how do we call it, failed.
Okay.
And it is also premature, because I've told you a scenario of some of the good things and some of the heavy things. And before I forget, there are two main things that this government prides themselves a lot in. This inflation that has gone down. Moro, with all due respect, anybody who's done economics will tell you that the contractionist approach can be used to drive down inflation. Contractioning means that the biggest spender will refuse to spend, which is government. Look, if you have contractors who are big spenders in this economy, they buy the sand, they buy the cement. If you do not pay them for almost a year, because your audit is now ready and you're about to pay them, what it means is that they wouldn't demand or purchase. When there is no purchase or demand, productivity and prices normally tank down. And there's one phenomenon about the 2025 budget, which I pray will not be a feature of the 2026 budget, which is budget variance analysis or performance, where you take a look at what was allocated to a particular program and what was actually released, the variance, as in how much was not given. So if you look at La General Hospital, for example, the 2025 budget said they were going to spend 60 million Ghana cedis on the project. In fact, if it's yesterday that Honorable Atuforsin paid, then I stand to be corrected. But as at my last check, in 2025 budget, not even one Ghana cedi was released. So when you do the budget variance, it's negative 100. It means that all the money didn't go. When you look at the big push, the variance for the big push was about negative 50%. About 50% of the money didn't go. Now, immediately, even your own allocations are not going. You know what it means? It means that you are deliberately, by a contractionist approach, reducing, how do you call it, demand in the whole economy. And that will ultimately let your books look good. But guess what? It's at the expense of lives and livelihoods. For these guys who were working at the sites that you didn't pay or are not releasing money to, they would have hardship. Their wages will not come. You will get a primary surplus, which is good. You'll be said that, oh, this guy is a fine person, but there must be a balance. I'm not saying spend recklessly, but have a fine balance. By the way, the monies being paid towards the aircraft purchase would have brought some relief in both the road sector, the health sector, and the manufacturing sector.
Felix.
Well, my brother has said a lot, so I'm sure that, first of all, you've secured an extension of time, I'm sure. It is important that we have time to discuss these matters. So I would address many of the things that he said, even if I assume that he said them in good faith. Clearly, there are distortions and there are misrepresentations, and it's important for the people of Ghana to understand what the truth is about these matters. There are also some matters that he has not raised, that his party raises, and some commentators in the social space also raise, and so it's important to clarify them. That, after all, is my job as government communications minister. Moro, the first point about COVID, you see, it's a hackneyed excuse. If I didn't even want to go back, because we've thrashed it out on this program many, many times. In fact, the verdict of the election showed that people did not buy that excuse. Because, you see, the average voter is rational. Forget about passions arising out of emotional attachment to parties. But the average voter is rational. When they go to vote, they do a careful assessment. They know what government is at fault for and what government cannot be blamed for. You see, they are just like us. We only have the benefit of coming to sit on TV. We are by no means the most intelligent people in this country. So let us not underestimate their capacity to assess the situation. If COVID was the force majeure that they say it is and had the impact that they say it had, they won't lose the election. People will see. Because people felt COVID, did they not? People died from COVID. There were people who were hospitalized. People's businesses were disrupted by COVID. So they know. And they won't take it out on you. But people know that COVID only became a shenanigan, a smoke screen for you to be reckless. It is a reason why when you compare us to all our neighbors in West Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa, we had the worst economic outcomes. Perhaps if you take out Zimbabwe, that has historic economic downturn. Ours was the worst in the whole of Sub-Saharan Africa. We defaulted on our debts. Our inflation was above the roof. Our debt-to-GDP ratio was above the roof. Our deficits were huge. We had a deficit of 15.1%, which was one of the highest, if not the highest, in Sub-Saharan Africa. COVID did not go past any other country. In fact, there were countries where they lost up to 1 million people. Italy and other places, they were dying in thousands by the day. Their economy didn't collapse. It's because they had fundamentally robust structures that underpinned the economy. And then when COVID struck, they made the right adjustment. But you didn't do. So you find that even before the elections and now, they falsely attribute a certain justification of COVID to President Mahama in the speech that he read at Harvard. You see, I'm in a position to know more because I contributed to writing that speech. So I know that when you read the speech, the president rightfully acknowledged that COVID had an impact on the world. Nobody can dispute that. So the president was not going to stand in Harvard and dispute that. But in the paragraphs that followed that particular paragraph, the president said we were hardest hit because it exposed fundamental flaws and mismanagement in our economy. It is in that speech. Moro, you can Google it. I actually have it on my machine, but because of time, there's no point going through it again. But Okoboy can actually Google it and read the whole speech if he thinks what I'm saying is not true. So that attempt to justify and in fact, sometimes they cut it and put it out as though it is a recent speech. It's a speech delivered in 2022 or thereabouts, at the height of COVID. So that matter must be put to rest. President Mahama has never held brief for the Akufo-Addo administration on COVID. He said that COVID had affected the world, but our situation was exacerbated by economic mismanagement. And it is true. And how do you check mismanagement? It is the deficit. You earn this much and you spend that much. The moment your revenues take a hit, you must adjust. And if you spend in the right places, the people will understand. But they didn't do that. They went on a spending spree because there was an election. And if that is actually what distinguished us from our neighbors, because we had an election in 2020. So they spent with a view to carrying favor with the Ghanaian electorate, buying votes, essentially. That is what they did. And that is how come, right after the election, they should have gone to the IMF. The moment the economic outlines became clear that the deficit was out of gear, our debts had risen, we were reaching unsustainable levels. In fact, Dr. Atufosi, in his guise as minority spokesperson on the economy, or ranking member on the Finance Committee of Parliament, held a lecture at UPSC where he warned that they needed to go to the IMF immediately. They didn't go in 2020, 2021. Even in 2022, they waited several months. You recall how Kenofurata went around vowing and swearing that he wasn't going to go. And he was a powerful force in government. All of them, because of the propaganda they had done against us with our 2014 IMF program, they feared that politically it would be used against them. So they said they won't go, even when it was clear that they will go. The only point at which President Akufo-Addo was convinced was when the then governor, Dr. Addison, went to him and told him, Master, if you don't go, this economy will collapse. It was that saved the day. And that is how come he called the IMF managing director at the time and said we were going to go. So, first of all, the mismanagement of 2020 to win elections. And then the dogged pig-headedness and refusal to go to the IMF when it was clear that we needed to go worsened our situation. Because you see, investors became uncomfortable right after 2020 when it became clear that up to 92% of tax revenue was being used to service our debt. So investors became edgy that hey, these people are getting to a point where they can't service our debt anymore. So they began withdrawing their investment. And you know, when you reach agreement with them for them to invest, there's a clause in there that allows them to make immediate withdrawals anytime they want it, and you are obliged to give it to them. So they began. Then our currency began to take a hit. At that point, they should have gone. If they had gone to the IMF, what the IMF would do will be to guarantee policy credibility and tell the investors that we are here. We will ensure that they do ABC, so your money is safe. They didn't do that. So they went to the IMF limping in an ambulance. By that time, things had gone awry. And then the IMF asked them that where your debt had gotten to, the only way out is to do a debt restructuring. Tell your investors and creditors that we can't pay now, let's pay tomorrow. So the IMF actually held their hand, took them around to essentially beg creditors to give them that space. But if they had gone right after the election of 2020, we wouldn't have gotten to this point. So that point about COVID must be dismissed. COVID, yes, affected the world, including bigger economies. But ours was exacerbated by recklessness, irresponsible mismanagement of our resources. Number two, there's a claim that they make about the 24-hour economy. That, a year down the line, nothing is... More, we never promised that 24-hour economy was going to last for 1 year.
Okay.
It is a long-term program aimed at expanding our economy and in the process generating jobs. unlike them who like to revel in slogans, we believe in more structured implementation of policies so that they stand the test of time. Now they are crying about 1D, 1F, 1D, 1F. Moro, if you have established 150 factories, do you even need a slogan? The factories will be standing. So whether the policy continues or not, the factories will be standing one day. Why would you even worry? But they like to sing slogans. What do you call it? Planting for food and jobs. And yet, food inflation reached 69%. Yet, if you look at the books, they say they spent 3 billion Ghana cedis on that program. And yet, food inflation reached 3%. So they believe in sloganeering. So they think we are affected by the same bag. No. As I speak to you, the 24-hour economy secretariat has been put together. If you look at the budget, they've been given substantial amounts of money to be able to set up properly. Once they do that, they will now enter the phase of proper implementation where they engage all stakeholders, give the incentives that we promise on electricity, utility, what do you call it? Incentives, financial backing, so that will become a program that stands the test of time, so that the youth then are able to benefit from the 133 that we spoke about. So we have not abandoned it. We are putting in place the building blocks carefully.
Okay.
The Women's Development Bank, and you rightly corrected him. Only last month, the finance minister has given 401 million Ghana cedis to the bank, and that makes it a viable commercial bank because that allows them to meet the minimum capital requirements of a commercial bank. So it is a big deal that the people of Ghana or the women of Ghana, Moro, you and I, bearded folk, we are not allowed anywhere near it. So the women clearly holds sway in this one. Yeah. And it is something that is happening. Last year, 50 million was given to them so that they do the preparatory work. So that when it is established, it stands the test of time. So 400 million Ghana cedis will go to the bank and the women will get their credit to do their business. Through that, you create employment. And in fact, it stands to reason that if the woman opens a small business based on this credit that she has received, she's also going to employ others. Not so? Yeah. And then you generate a bit of jobs in that regard. Again, he says that we are spending 2.5 billion Ghana cedis buying aircraft. So it is a misplaced priority and you can build roads, you can do water projects. It is true, there's something called opportunity cost. If you don't use it for this, you can use it for that. At the very least, now it is clear that the claim that we were spending $1.2 billion to buy a presidential jet is a lie, right? Because he himself has said now it is 2.5 billion Ghana cedis to buy 5 planes. Is that what he said?
In this budget?
Yes.
In the subsequent...
Yeah, but that is not what... But the multi-year budget doesn't say we'll spend $1 billion on a presidential aircraft. That's not what the budget says.
When you add all...
No, but it is not to buy 1 or 2 presidential aircraft. It is to buy a range of equipment. And the last time I was here, I spelled it out tomorrow. Security is the number one priority of every government anywhere in the world. Look, the US has an aircraft carrier called SS Gerald Ford, which costs what? About $13 billion to build. $13 billion for one equipment. Because they know that they have to protect their citizens against external aggression. And they are doing that because it is a priority. And there was a proverb I recited here the last time, and I'll repeat it. They say, Abua once na when you see the housefly may not have much to offer, but at the very least, wiping its palm is something that it can do. So if a government is not able to do anything at all, securing its citizens should be something that you should be able to do. So it is the number one priority of every government to secure its citizens. Anybody who tells you that security is not a priority cannot be a serious broker. And more, what are we buying? We are buying equipment for the military, the armed forces, the air force. Okay. And it's a broad range of equipment. It's not just aircraft. So there are 4 helicopters, military helicopters. We recently had a helicopter that was involved in a crash, taking away some of our brightest minds. Tomorrow, Dr. Mane's final funeral rites will be held in Kufuor. Such an illustrious son of Ghana was lost. And one of the reasons when the experts undertook the investigation and presented a report, they stated it, that the lack of advanced avionics equipment in that aircraft contributed to the accident. And that if they had it, they would have had greater terrain awareness and be able to avoid the obstacles that led to this crash. Why should we endanger the people we have spent money to train to protect us by air? So government has taken a decision to retool the armed forces over a 4-year period, buying armored carrier personnel. And indeed, they actually entered the contract for the armored carrier personnel from Israel. They paid $40 million to the company. The company says they won't supply until we have paid another 40. That's the contract they signed. So we have to look for $40 million to add to it so that we can get 19 armored personnel carrier, what we colloquially call armored car. There are vessels, 2 vessels, high capacity vessels that we need to police our territorial waters. It is part of the expenditure that we've programmed for the next 4 years. There are other equipment for the Air Force. There's a jet that is being bought. Of course, it will be for executive use as well. But even that aircraft is a military platform. It's an Air Force platform. That aircraft will be piloted by the Chief of Air Staff. It is a platform that they have. They have said that the current Falcon 900EX has become too costly to maintain because of the frequent breakdown. Under them, it went for maintenance for 9 months. Under us, it has gone for maintenance for 8 months. Every now and then, a new fault is detected. It's about 15 years old. So they say that rather than constantly use it in this unreliable shape, today it's available, tomorrow it's not available, we have to go and repair at great cost. If you rent also, as President Akufo-Addo was doing, it can cost you up to $3 million a week if you are in the possession, because sometimes the president has to travel to multiple countries, so it's not convenient for the aircraft to leave and come back. He has to have access to the aircraft over the period that, if you have it at $18,000 an hour for 1 week, that's $3 million. It is not prudent use of resources. So the Air Force recommends, among other things, all the equipment that they have asked for, that this additional platform be available for executive travel and other uses. That's all. So to say that retooling the armed forces is a misplaced priority, and the only thing that we need to do is to build hospitals or roads, is to miss the point. Big push. He says that there was a deficit in big push spending. You see, and I explained this during the budget debate. You see, big push is a multi-billion cedi project. In fact, last year, 13.9 billion was allocated for it. This year, 13.9 billion was allocated for it. Next year, another 30 billion, bringing it to 43.9 billion, or let's say 44 billion Ghana cedis. The minister's position is this. As I speak tomorrow, the minister has close to $1 billion in the big push account. The minister says that government's policy is that we won't pay mobilization to contractors. Sometimes you are required to pay 20 or 30% to contractors as mobilization so that they start the project. So the minister says that you record that President Mama said, of course, lightheartedly, that he's not going to allow wheelbarrow contractors anywhere near big push. That term is used to refer to contractors who do not have the means to execute projects, and they have to rely solely on government. And that is risky because you can lead to situations where the project is stalled. Right. There are contractors who are giving mobilization and don't show up. As is the case for an Indian company that they gave $30 million to for a road between, is it Sabilugu or something like that, who took $30 million and has not shown up. They gave him mobilization. So the minister says, no, I won't give mobilization. However, if you raise a certificate after having done work and it is certified to represent or reflect the exact amount of work you've done, I will pay you within a matter of 30 days. So the money is there. And as I speak to, there are about 30 projects that are ongoing. When certificates become due for those projects, they will be paid. So, Moro, anybody who tells you that releases have not been made for big push is not true. There's $1 billion ring fence for it, as I speak to you now. Let me quickly move on to some propaganda too that they do. They say, oh, we have spent $10 billion. The Bank of Ghana has spent $10 billion intervening in the forest market to show up the city. And now we could have just spent $4 billion of that to do the big push. Indeed, I have seen a video in which a TV presenter and some panelists are arguing this way. With the greatest respect to them, that is high-profile ignorance. You know, the Bank of Ghana does not dash forex to the market. You see, forex, foreign exchange, that's the official term. It's like any other commodity. It's like Okoboy's nice suit. It is sold for a price. If there is scarcity of these suits, multiple bidders will put in money. And that is likely to raise the price. It is basic economics. And he himself alluded to how demand can impact prices. So if there's a shortage of forex, people bid and are prepared to pay higher than the other person so that they secure it. The entity in Ghana that has the legal status to sell forex or as it were, procure forex for release onto the market is the Bank of Ghana. Their law mandates them to do so. So the banks or commercial banks, through which businesses also secure forex, buy forex from the Bank of Ghana. So they go and give the Bank of Ghana cedis, the cedi equivalent of how much forex they want. The Bank of Ghana takes that money, gives it to Gold Board to purchase gold. The Gold Board then exports that gold, gets dollars and brings it back to the Bank of Ghana. So it's not like the Bank of Ghana goes into its vaults, takes dollars and go and give it to commercial banks for free, so that you can use that same money to go and build a hospital or finance 24-hour economy. So the NPP and their propagandists must cut out this propaganda. It doesn't do them justice when they argue this way. So the Bank of Ghana calls it intermediation. Basically, they are a middleman between the source of the forex and the commercial banks, who also do business with forex bureaus and other operators in the economy. This is how it works. So it's not like there was $10 billion lying there doing nothing and they just decided to pump it. And you see, Moro, the cost of living, which generates hardships, is the biggest problem of the Ghanaian. Every government that has lost election in this country can trace the loss to sentiments about cost of living and hardships. And I'm sure Boye will bear me out. Indeed, Asantehene has a famous video in which he says that Ghana for the economy and Libra and the Tuaba. So that the moment they begin to feel hardships and they determine that you have caused it, they punish you as they punished the NPP and they've punished the NDC before and they punished other parties before. So any government has a responsibility to do what it takes to ease the burden and suffering of the people. So if the Bank of Ghana and Gold Board, and he himself has praised the Gold Board initiative, the Gold Board initiative or proposal was in our 2020 manifesto. We didn't win and therefore we could not implement it. But having won now, we've implemented it. And in the last few months, let's say 8 to 9 months, they've brought in $10 billion of forex. And that is how come the Bank of Ghana is able to get that sort of liquidity to put into the market, so that when businessmen need it for import or other activity, they get some. That is how come the currency has appreciated. The downside of it is that the currency would have depreciated, the city would have depreciated, and it will mean that prices will continue to go up, which will lead to direct suffering of the people. So it is also a major priority of government to ease the suffering and burden of the people of Ghana. There are a few NPP people, fanatics, posing as intellectuals and economic gurus who were nowhere to be found when the economy collapsed, who constantly purport to criticize this, that the Bank of Ghana is intervening. What is the use of having dollars in your central bank when people are suffering? And indeed, the Bank of Ghana has met and exceeded the IMF threshold for additions to our external reserves. They asked us to do $1.4 billion this year. We've exceeded it. So there's even extra. And when they have extra and they can mobilize more through the Gold Board arrangement, the wisest thing to do is to make sure that forex is available in the market, so prices don't rise because the currency depreciates. So that must be put on record. Again, he also says that electricity prices have increased. You see, there's a bird called Anoma Kokonekode. Oh, it is important. Yes, it's important to address this. You see, there's a bird called Anoma Kokonekode.
Okay.
Essentially, they go to the estuary of the river and muddy the waters. Then they quickly run down south to lament how muddy the water is.
Okay.
And that is essentially what the NPP is doing. You see, in December 2024, in fact, as part of the IMF program, one of the things that they were required to do was periodic tariff adjustment. You know that in times past, up until 2015 or so, the petroleum downstream was not deregulated. So government used to pay what they call subsidy. In reality, government never had money to pay, so there was always debt. And as and when it became convenient, a huge increase was slapped on the price of fuel at the pumps. So we took a bold decision to do full deregulation. Credit must be given to President Kufuor because he did partial deregulation. But we did full deregulation. Since we did that, when was the last time we've heard of fuel shortage? Or an astronomical increase in fuel prices, save for the period under the NPP between 2022 and 2024. That is because there's full cost recovery. When importers bring in fuel, they get the exact amount of money that they put into importing it. So there's no debt. They call it full deregulation. Electricity costs money to generate. And what we have often done is that government has committed to subsidies that it does not have the money to honor. So constantly there are debts. And then when it hits a critical point, we go into doom zone. Because the utility companies simply do not have a leeway out. As I speak to you, in this budget, the budget for 2025, the finance minister has had to pay 27 billion Ghana cedis to the energy ministry to give to operators in the sector as what they call energy sector shortfall. Because the amount of money it costs to generate electricity is far more than what they bring in. The difference has to be made for by government. And this year, 27 billion. Imagine what 27 billion Ghana cedis can do. Next year, because of the efficiency improvements, the situation has improved so that now it will be 15 billion, not 27 billion. And we hope to bring it down and eliminate it completely. You understand me? Because of this age-old problem, Penofrata is on record to have said that increases in electricity that they did in April 2023 were a precondition under the IMF deal. And in fact, it is in the IMF document in December 2024 when they went for the final tranche of the external credit facility that they could take because they were leaving office, about $330 million or so. They reached agreement, which is captured in the staff level report. IMF country report number 24/334, page 71. They reached agreement that they will do two things as prior actions to trigger the next release, which is that starting from the first quarter of this year, there will be quarterly tariff adjustments. Quarterly tariff adjustments. That quarterly tariff adjustment is supposed to address operational costs that arise during the year so that the companies don't spend more than they earn, which will make their operations unsustainable. So you find that they are marginal. Sometimes 3%, sometimes 4%. If you do that, for instance, if there's an increase in an input like crude oil or light crude to fire thermal plants on the world market, it is accounted for in the adjustment. If the dollar rises, making the import more expensive or other inputs more expensive, it is accounted for. If inflation rises to a point where it devalues the revenue they are making, it is accounted for. So that's what the quarterly tariff adjustment does. It is on page 71 of this document here. I can give it to you. Your producer can splash it on the screen. The full title of the document is that third review under the arrangements under the extended credit facility, request for modification of performance criteria and financing assurances review, press release, staff report, and statement by the executive director for Ghana, December 2024. I will quote the number again. Anybody can go to the IMF website and download it. IMF country report number 24/334. Okay. And then they said that in addition to this quarterly adjustment, there is supposed to be a major tariff adjustment in September and October. That one is done between every 3 to 5 years. And indeed, when PURC announced a major tariff adjustment of 9% for electricity and 15% for water, they indicated that the major tariff adjustment, which the NPP agreed to, is aimed at improving the asset base of the utility. So ECG and Ghana Water, they need equipment, they need transformers, and other things to sustain their operations. The quarterly tariff adjustment doesn't account for that. That one accounts for only operational costs, overheads. But in terms of the capital expenditure that they make, this tariff adjustment is to ensure that over the years it does not deteriorate and affect performance and efficiency. They agreed to it. How can you have agreed to a conditionality and taken $330 million for it in December 2024 and then come this year to complain that the very thing you agreed to, which binds us, because the IMF, they don't deal with parties, they deal with governments. The day we renege on this agreement, they can call off this program and the consequences will be catastrophic. So the NPP cannot purport to be lamenting the implementation of the very policy that they have agreed to. It is not honest political, and they must stop it. It does not respect the people who they seek to lead one day. So that is that. Okay. Now, the final thing about La General Hospital.
And please be brief about
it. Yes, I'll be brief. I think the major points have been exhausted. Yes. This La General Hospital matter. Local Boye is here. They cast short for it in the run-up to the 2020 elections. And I recall, they splashed the entire ring road leading up to Lagina Hospital with billboards of Akufo-Addo and artist impressions of Lagina Hospital. 2020. Ask Local Boye, when did they start that project? It took about a 4-year delay. Of course, again, COVID was the whipping boy. They blamed COVID and everything else under the sun for why they couldn't start. Eventually, they did not secure funding for it. You see, unlike UGMC, Rage, and others, the the VAMED projects, and all the other hospital projects they inherited, which had financing secured. The UGMC, the money came from Hapoel Bank of Tel Aviv in Israel. $217 million. It was in an account. So as and when you raise certificates, you draw down on it. The Rage money came from French sources. So it was a French, contractor that was executing it. The money was there. So you just continue. In fact, all that government needs to do is to do nothing. The project will go on. They didn't leave a dime for La General Hospital. So you saddle the government with a liability and make no provision for it. Agenda 111. Moro, you are a Muslim, but pardon me to quote the Bible. It says, somewhere in Proverbs, that who builds a house without sitting down to count the cost? You said that you will build 111 hospitals. In fact, the promise was first made sometime in 2019 when COVID struck. When President Akufo-Addo realized that John Mahama was getting all the plaudits for his investment in the major hospitals that were saving the day under COVID, he said they will build 88 hospitals in the space of 1 year. He failed to meet that target by the end of that 1 year. Then they metamorphosed, or they converted it into Agenda 111 and included more hospitals. If you do the computation, they needed close to $2 billion to complete it. You would have thought that if it was a priority, they will make provision like we have done for Big Push for this and put the money in an account dedicated solely to this project. They didn't do that. They were relying on the trickles that come into government coffers. So they were not able to open one for members of the public to use before they left office. Yet you expect that, and you had 8 years to do this. Yet they expect that the government that has come and been in power for about 11 months will be able now to complete all of this. Indeed, in the budget, we have said that we'll complete about 10 of the Agenda 111 hospitals next year.
All right.
And as and when we progress, we'll complete more. Even as others too that require critical attention are being done. So it is disingenuous to create such a mess. And then come and start on the rooftops and insist that that mess should be cleared within such a short space of time. When you, within 8 years, could not finish one Agenda 111 hospital for anybody to access. It is not proper. But finally, we also have other interventions. I spoke to you about, and the reason why I'm saying this is that people have asked, and it's my duty as government communications minister to answer it. The NPP and their propagandists have been on song, claiming that we said, oh, we will build in excess of 500 CHIPS compounds. So where are they? Moro, one of the things that this government must be credited for is the fidelity that they've kept to the District Assembly Common Fund utilization. I don't know about Oku Boys, Teshi Force and what's the municipality? Lejokuku. So I'm sure he has the records there. Under their time, the Common Fund was the scarcest commodity you can find because they were doing deductions at the center. So the money was not going. We have a policy that says that 80% of the Common Fund must go. And every day I raise the issue of AAK. 298,000 the whole of last year, as against 6.5 million by the middle of this year. By the close of this year, we expect about 19 million Ghana cedis. Now, in order to align this additional flow with government's overarching strategy and objective, we asked each assembly or municipality to abide by a set of guidelines. So I was in cabinet when cabinet approved it. Among other things, they are supposed to have what we call a 24-hour economy market. That is for areas where they don't have decent markets. So if you come to AAK, for instance, our district capital, Abrodungwa, has a market that has been there since the 60s. Clearly, it has deteriorated and not fit for purpose anymore. So as I speak to you, land has been cleared for the construction of this 24-hour economy market. It will cost about 5 million cedis or so. And that's about 25% of the money is coming to the assembly this year. In addition to that, all these assemblies and municipalities and metropolises are required to have at least 2 CHIPS compounds built out of the allocation this year. The reason for that is the implementation of the free primary health care, and he is a medical expert, so he would understand that you need a basic building block for healthcare. So that if you have minor ailments like headaches and stomach aches and some minor rashes and other things that don't require referral to higher levels of medical care, you can do so at the CHIPS compound level. So, as I speak to you, in AAK, 2 of them are almost complete. We expect that by the end of this year, we will commission both, one at Nyamedom, one at a place called Wihiaba. And it is the same for almost every place. They are at various stages of completion. And once they are completed, they'll be dealt with. Indeed, the local government minister, when he takes his turn at the Government Accountability Series, will give an update on this one. So, Molo, these are the issues that I wanted to address so that nobody distorts the facts as they remain. Thank you very much.
Austin Game, you're very good friend. Austin Game says, he sent a message. He says, good morning. Greet my friends with you in studio. It's only fair to ask Precious Boye whether we need to ensure that we invest in the energy sector for the purpose of stable power. I also pay for increase in tariffs, but I would prefer that than buying fuel to power our generator. And he says, thank you very much. Samuel Brababin says, we're told that the presidential jet was in pristine condition and that the Ghana army had enough helicopters, so it was unwise to retool under the Akufo-Addo government while Ghanaians were suffering. Now, what has changed? Are we suddenly living like Brits, Emirati, Saudi, or Bruneian royals? Felix should please rest. But for Samuel continues to say that it's a lie from the pit of hell that Akufo-Addo had a big government, as Felix wants us to believe. We have been scouted. President Akufo-Addo was vilified for nothing. Today, President John Dramani Mohammed's government is the largest in Ghana's history, and even the staff of the presidency now outnumber those who served under Akufo-Addo. In the coming days, I will reveal the details.
Let me address that right now.
It says, for now, can the government explain the role of a regional political coordinator to the regional minister, a position that pays around 600,000 a year? Are they any more than the regional ministers did during our tenure? What are the roles of Professor Francis Dodu, Richmond Kwaku, Jonathan Gado, and Beatrice Richardson at the Office of the National Anti-Corruption Program? Samuel Brababin says that message. Let me just finish and then you can respond to some of them. Sure. Desmond from Catalyst newspaper, managing editor of the Catalyst newspaper, says Honorable Koboy should know that only 2 of his NPP government appointees were said to refund the 2.2 billion the Auditor General believes was lost to the state of the NSS. Perhaps if the NPP government had topped up the money a little to buy 4 helicopters and 2 presidential jets, the NDC wouldn't have to spend the same amount today to retool our armed forces. The NDC government's approach is certainly better than a situation where only 2 individuals are alleged to have caused such a massive loss at the NSS. Honorable Atufo has stated that the amount that Akufo-Addo spent on hiring luxurious jet would have been enough to purchase a brand new presidential jet for the nation. NDC is doing better, please. Carlos Obododio says the government is managing the economy well. Prices of many goods have reduced, like a bag of rice that had used to cost 500 to 650 cedis, now going for about 345 cedis when bought in bulk. Fuel prices have dropped, transportation costs have gone down, and the dollar has stabilized. However, ordinary citizens are not feeling these reductions. Cooked food portions remain the same price, and some transport operators have not reduced their fares. The benefits mainly reach those who buy in bulk, while the average Ghanaian who buys in small quantities sees no change. I believe government must ensure these reductions trickle down to the grassroots. Carlos from Odododio sent that message. Now, this one here from Bagam Abdul, who is watching us from the United States, says, Alaji, the economic prudence Dr. Okubo is talking about in Nanado's first term wasn't solely the work of NPP. There were World Bank projections in 2016 that Ghana's economy was to witness a rebound. These projections were made when the MP was still in opposition. Dumso was constant right after 2018. In no time, Aluworks collapsed. PBC almost collapsed. He should give us a break. That's from Abdul Bagam. Reverend Jones Lati from the UK, a lawyer and also a preacher, says, good morning. Please give a number to Felix to call me urgently. I'd like to share a brilliant idea about revenue generation to district assemblies. Can Felix explain why all building materials prices are so high when the economy is doing well? Can we buy a bag of cement at 50 cedis, price of pharmaceutical products still high? Reverend Jones Lati, I'll do the needful. I'll share your number with him, and I'm sure that he will definitely get in touch with you. Now, Hanan Gondado, he also sent this message. Hassan Saudogo, that's what I should be saying. He said, Assalamu alaikum alajimo, Dr. Okoboy was on a Senpai with the OB some months back saying that the Ghana e-health data with Lightwave is Lightwave property but not Ghana's property. So Ghana has no right to demand or request for that data. Please ask Okoboy if or whether he still stands by that. Honorable Kwachu Fozu says the e-health data with Lightwave is Ghana's property in the contract, which is which. Okoboy should stop reminding us of history of the NPP because Nanado and NPP history is annoying. Okoboy should just admit Nanado NPP was a failure, even to death. Free SHS produce useless students who can't add 1+1. And Alarama, who's sending us a message from Alarama Amin Isahaku, he says that he says, good morning, Moro. What a speech, what a speech, what a speech. A heart-moving speech from the chairman of Jospin Group of Companies from Amin in Tamale. But says, thanks for the good show today. Please tell Honorable Felix for me that he's now very difficult to reach out from Amin in Tamale. Peter T from Shukra says, good morning, Moro. This is Peter T from Shukra. Tell Felix Kwachovo so that he's excellent in his approach of explaining government policies and programs to Ghanaians. May the Almighty Allah protect and guide him. Moro, to add to Honorable Felix Kwacho's information, 2018 NP government was spending $9.5 million for importation of tomatoes alone into Ghana. 2022, $400 million. Between 2021-23, rice, 270 million, and so on and so forth. And it says MP came to control Ghana's economy with a very reckless, bad policy, because any serious government like NDC government has to come to control this economy in order to avoid excess expenditure, unlike Bamia's bad policies that accumulated over 4.4 billion cedis against the IMF conditionality before sacked from power. Wow, just too many messages. Now, Anthony Kujo, who's sending us a message on Facebook, says, though the Mahama-led government has done far better than the previous MP government, we need policies to either reduce or stabilize prices of goods and services because some traders do not want to reduce their prices. And also, Kwame Jr. 3953 says, Felix Ozukwachi is simply built for opposition. I don't know why he's still talking about MPP. He say you're built for opposition because you're still talking about MPP. Oh. Yes, and Kwame Jr. 3395
so
says,
when the MPP says sometimes you say more than it.
So, Felix, is this not why Ghanaians voted for the NDC? So why are you still lamenting about the past?
So I'm indicating what we are doing differently. That's all.
All right, so unfortunately, we don't have enough time. I don't know how you're going to do this.
My brother has spoken for about 40 more minutes.
I know. I just looked at it.
3 minutes, I don't need to speak much. You see, I like what Felix said in the beginning that Ghanaians are discerning. They can tell good from bad, and they can tell motives. Felix and his brothers and sisters in the NDC told the whole country that this presidential jet, it's so much in a good condition that we should only start discussing possibility of purchase in 2030. In fact, the commentary from their party members said that all of them as a party had met that buying aircrafts for the Air Force was a no-no.
How?
Oh, and please let me do some quick education. When they mention presidential jet, it's not bought for Jubilee House. Every jet that the president flies in is an aircraft of the Ghana Air Force. The way my brother talked, if you don't have that education, you might assume that there are some planes that come, it is the president's pilot and people that handle it, and there's one for the Air Force. Every plane bought by Ghana is part of what they call the communication squadron. Look, fine, we are human beings. If you think that based on what you've seen on coming to power, we need to buy new ones, it's very simple. Come out, tell the public that, look, we fought the purchase of even helicopters. We fought the purchase of aircrafts. But on coming to power, we think that because of ABC, we have to make a 180-degree turn. Do that to the public. Give them, treat them in a way that the Ghanaian will feel that they have some sense of, some modicum of sense. You respect their intelligence. Just 2024, just last year, Honorable Nitu took some, bills to Parliament, agreements, for them to buy some jets for the Air Force. Felix and his party threw it away. They said, don't even discuss this. Ghana can't discuss this now. And you see, I have a serious worry. The presidential jet that President Kufuor used.
Sorry, Felix, is this jet we're buying?
Which jet is that?
This is what is trending.
The Falcon 6.
It's all over social media.
You can
no, jets are not off-the-shelf items. I've seen that they're going to bring some jets and show you. No. Every jet is configured to meet the specifications of the Air Force.
So at least because the name of the jet is known, when you go online, you can see its features. It's not a secret. But you see, the point I want to make is that when President Kufuor was in office, it was not a private pilot who was flying his plane. It was the chief of, marshal or whatever. So we should not behave like, oh, in the past it was even the presidential jet was a civilian plane, but this time we are reaching the Air Force. Every plane bought is the property of the airport and is a communication contract. And you know what, Moro? With all due respect, this presidential plane, the one we have already, there is no report that has emanated from the, the Air Force, that is not fit for use.
Says who?
We've spent millions of dollars. Baboro, we sent it for, maintenance and all that. Has it not come back? If it was still not functional, would it bring it back? So my point is that you are a country that has so many challenges. A country that is finding difficulty in raising the money to employ nurses and teachers who have finished their schooling. And yet you are comfortable. The same NDC that just a few months ago said their burden is the ordinary Ghanaian is comfortable to spend. And you know, there were some omissions that happened in the budget reading. It was not by mistake. Atufosi knew that if it had come from his mouth when he read the budget, that 2.5 billion in 2026 was going to be the first payment for a series of aircrafts for the Air Force. People will go like, Atu, wait a minute, is that you? Atu was comfortable mentioning 100 million Ghana cedis for General 1. Atu mentioned 292 million Ghana cedis for sanitary pads. If you are comfortable to mention 100 million for a program, how come you left an amount of 2.5 billion Ghana cedis? It's because Atu is a politician. He knows that if a Ghanaian hears that amount, they will look at him twice. And by the way, in 2027, the budget is made such that the medium-term estimates are also known. Ghana is ready to pay another 3.6 billion Ghana cedis in 2027 budget, pay 3.5 billion in 2028. When I saw these figures, you know what I told myself? It is only opposition that makes the politician learn. Because when I listen to some of the comments I'm hearing now, I'm like, politicians, that's why they say we are from the same mother. By the way, so let me just tell the public that if today NDC thinks that we have to buy a plane, they should be bold to at least treat Ghanaians with respect and come and tell them we fought proposals in parliament to buy aircraft, retool the Air Force. We fought and said, President, this presidential jet is fit up to 2030, and that is a no-no. But today, based on ABC, please, we've made it. That is what makes you a team and men of integrity and men of honor. And in conclusion, look, NDC was not born yesterday. Like I said, in this world, there are times and seasons. I know their goodwill is big. So when I see some of their supporters say some things, I smile and laugh. This same NDC were the same people that were removed from office in 2016 by this same country, by people who are staying in this country. It is a lesson to all of us. Those who said come home and be their boss, they have what it takes to tell you go away. Keep the focus. It is about improving the livelihoods and lives of Ghanaians. It is about, the opportunity cost. I speak about these billions because if Agenda 111, which is going to provide job opportunities for close to 15,000 health workers and expand the economies of communities across Ghana, if Agenda 111 needs more, as we speak, if you have about 10 billion Ghana cedis, you are likely to finish Agenda 111. If you are not ready to do that, to touch 15,000 lives, but you can buy 4 or 5 machines at the same cost, it speaks also to your priorities. And although your goodwill is big, Moro, it is incumbent on me, it's my duty to remind the public that you can give them the goodwill, but remember, they prefer the machines to activating economic poles across the country. Only time will tell.
Sandy Saliu says that the NDC communicator should be apt in a quick response to the opponent. This will help set the record straight and wait till the election year. Say hi to Honorable Fosu Kwache, Juma Mubarak to all Muslims around the world. That's from Sandy Saliu, who's watching us. And also, Felix, Hassan Ahmed, K-Post. She says I should say hello.
Moro, just 20 seconds. Just 20 seconds.
Okay, sure.
The biggest and most, I will not say fanciful, most dear, the dearest project to President Mama, the expressway, is not going to be funded with money that is sitting down as a loan. It's money that will trickle in from our revenues. All the big push money, which is handling almost every infrastructure in Ghana, is money from revenues. There were projects Akufo-Addo did which were loans, like the nephrology unit at Kolebu, the Po Hospital by Vamed, and all that. But I will say that as a country, every capital project we execute must be money that is sitting down through a loan. No, Empress Mama's Expressway, which is so dear, is going to be paid for from monies that trickle forever. So we should stop creating the impression that when you inherit a project and you don't have money sitting already, it is a wasteful idea. La Gemma, we paid about 1.7 million euros before we left. When you inherit governance, we are building hospital for the community. We struggled because of challenges. You've given power for almost 1 year. Whenever you are asked, you go back 5-6 years ago, and the structure is sitting down, waiting for it to be worked on, so that the community will benefit. Get to work and stop reveling and being excited about the victory that the people gave you.
No, it's important. I'm sure you see, it's important to respond to it. You see, Moro. That's why I cited the biblical verse.
Yes.
You do not start building a mansion without having counted the cost. Counting the cost means also that you think of where to get the money.
Right.
So even if it is GOG funded, you must ring fence that amount. The reason why Big Push will proceed smoothly is that the finance minister has done that. 13.9 billion for this year, 30 billion for next year.
Okay.
When you mooted the idea of Agenda 111, the capital outlay was such that it was not something we were going to be able to do if you relied on the old system of financing. You didn't ring-fence the money. In other words, you didn't decide that no matter what happens, this money will go to Agenda 111.
Okay.
Neither did you get external funding. We are talking $2 billion.
I'm not PENDREAM TV. Now, so far so good. Say open online portal e Ghana. Nipa share, nipa follow, nipa comment here. To my best of knowledge, without any biases, PENDREAM TV.